how do you see it now in perspective of time? Perspective
I
of
don't
time.
think it. I think it's almost fizzled out.
You
I
believe
think
so?
almost. I really believe that at Balenciaga is business as usual. I don't see as many people talking about the scandal anymore. Um, and I think a lot of the people, let's say online, like that, had really big distaste for what happened. Like in terms of like outside the fashion, because in fashion we were talking about it, but when it started to reach like conservative America and all that sort of stuff, um, and like religious leaders and all that stuff. I think the reason why sometimes these things don't reflect in the sales is maybe because they weren't the original customers. The people that buy this the most are in Asia. So what really matters is what's the temperature around these things in Asia. That's where it would really affect the financials of these brands. And if in Asia they're not really concerned about it as much, and there isn't as much discourse, then it's not really going to affect their bottom line, to be honest. What we're saying in London is not really going to move the needle, because we aren't the people that are, you know, buying most of Balenciaga. The people that are buying most of Balenciaga are in Asia.
Do you remember the article that I showed you about? I think it was about people adopting like carrying brands. It was either Gucci or Balenciaga. I'm not sure. I don't know
Mm,
whether because I remember I was sending you brands earlier at the top of this year. But just how what they're doing in respect to what Louis Vuitton is doing, and they're starkly different in terms of how they're valued. And
hmm
just as there's like a Manchester derby rival, like there's a Man City and there's United. Like being a Louis Vuitton customer means that you're not a Gucci customer, so on and so forth, right?
mm.
I obviously can't say that with 100% certainty, but I do see some sensibilities on in that. I do understand that there were some talks or there was some criticism in the Chinese market of how they didn't really like what happened with Balenciaga. But obviously, that's not necessarily to say with Gucci. However, I do think that these things stack on top of each other when it comes to culturally. Um, what philosophy do you align with in terms
Yeah.
of how LVMH acts and how Karen acts?
The old mule, I'm with you here. I do not shed a tear for a company that misses out on billions. In the world we live in, bigger picture and all greed is not good. Yeah, I'm with you, 100%. This is really eye-opening. As a person who worked for fashion, not in fashion, I never heard of this scandal, or I didn't keep attention to it just to put things into perspective. Yeah, exactly. So it's like most people that are buying these things, do they care about, or do they even know about the scandal? Is it, are people around them really talking about this or discussing it? That's what I mean. So that's why it seems like Balenciaga have continued fashion as usual, and they've almost ethered that whole controversy. I feel like they just,
You believe so?
yeah, they just
Okay.
pretended like nothing happened and just kept going with
Oh,
it until
yeah. Well, yeah, they
until like
acted like
the
nothing's
discourse
happened,
stopped.
but uh, okay.
Yeah,
Um, I I can I can say that I don't want to harp on it as if like I think it's like a major thing because but even though it was a major thing, um, I do believe that people value it less based on what
yeah,
happened, and they value it less based on the way that Demna is creating also. Like they
right.
think he's just rehashing old work. So yeah.
But then, okay, even though I have that opinion of Demna, obviously, in the sense of if we're talking about financials and reports and stuff, most like I just have a channel where I like to share my opinion and it's fun. But if we're being really honest, when it comes to what is selling, my opinion is not that important because the people that buy this stuff are in Asia, and these are most of these people that buy this brand, they probably don't watch my channel, they probably don't know who I am. So once again, just because in fashion we are like, okay, Demna Gvasalia is, he's not developing his aesthetic and all that sort of stuff. But if that's not the discourse around where most of the customers are, You know what I mean? It's not really going to affect how many people buy it, or customers are not going to be like, oh, it's not a core anymore because people are saying his aesthetic is becoming stagnant because they're not even, you know, engrossed in that sort of conversation, or they're not around that conversation, if that makes sense.
Um, I wouldn't underestimate the power of an influencer's voice. I think that's why an influencer is an influencer and why people get paid what they get
Mm,
paid, right? Um, but like to be fair, and earlier on the stream, I did agree with you saying that the fashion community versus the fashion buyers are two completely different people sometimes, and like there's only like minor overlap in certain things. However, if the public discourse around a certain brand is one thing, then yeah, but to counteract my point, or at least like to stillman it in a way, it's like there was the public, displays of what was, with Virgil and things, and what he was creating, and then there was the inside fashion thing, right? And then, as much as there were negative people within the fashion community, there were positive people in the fashion community, and then there
mm,
were people that would defend him culturally, right? So there is the understanding of community, but there is also the culture around the person and how well he sold his story. And Virgil continued to sell his story with LB
mm.
continually throughout his, tenure. God rest his soul. But that's the same thing I believe with that's happening now with certain brands in Karen. It's like they're not selling their story, and the culture around them isn't very, appetizing to a lot of people.
Mm-hmm.
But this can just be for a season, fairly. Like, what I'm saying, I don't have major feelings to it, but generally, yeah.
The old me, it was Balenciaga big in the UK. I do not see anyone wearing it. Well, apart from mums and yeah, yeah. I think Balenciaga is probably bigger in like Asia or the US or somewhere. Like, yeah, people don't really wear in the UK. Like, what does the average person wear if they want to buy like a high end? A lot of people are wearing the Dior runners now. A lot of people are buying Dior runners. Trying to think of what other things like people buy. Yeah, I don't really even like when it comes to bags, people aren't really buying. You don't see that many Balenciaga bags in the UK. Footwear, not as much. It was huge at one point. I think it's a lot less now, but it was absolutely massive at one point. Do you remember those like Balenciaga runners? Do you know the ones I'm talking about?
Yeah. Yeah. Are you talking about the
The like
sock runners
old,
or
the
are you talking
pointy
about the
ones.
triple
No,
S?
no, no, the pointy ones. This is like in the same era as Balenciaga arenas.
Oh, no.
Let
I
me
did
see
not
if I
see
can Google
those.
them. That was when like a lot of people in the UK were wearing Balenciaga.
And so, really? Not the sock runners and not the triple S's. Not
No,
the
no.
interesting. Okay.
I have to find them. One second. Aha. I found,
Nice.
I found a picture of them. Mate, when I show you, you're going to be like, oh yeah, I remember these. I remember these runners. This was when people in the UK were wearing Balenciaga. This shoe right here is like those runners.
Oh,
That was like
wow, wow,
peak
wow,
Balenciaga
wow,
UK. Like this
wow.
shoe,
Yeah,
that
everybody.
was like,
The
yeah,
market
this
even had
shoe,
those. You knew that was a shoe when the market had them as
this
well.
shoe here. Oh my. All the girlies had this shoe. And the
That's
same thing with the sock runners too. And the same thing with the Triple S, not so much. It
yeah.
was big, but not that big as like the sock runners or these ones. Or arenas too. Arenas were huge too. So I think, yeah, now in the UK, less people wear Balenciaga, to be honest.
Okay, so I just got it. Asia Pacific, so like the bigger Asia, not Japan and stuff.
Private school Roshi runs.
That's fair. That's very fair.
That is
So
hilarious.
just to put it out there quickly, uh, Balenciaga, Karen Group's brands are just as big in America as they are over here. Way, way, way bigger in Asia Pacific. Just
Yeah, I
based
mean,
on
you
the
could just check
article.
the reports and
But
obviously see
yeah,
the percentages. Um,
but yeah, like if you count like, but I don't think that you can just generally count you know what I'm saying,
mm.
the UK section of Western Europe, but it does account for
I mean, because
less
The
than
UK is so tiny. Is
yeah,
the UK is so tiny. The UK
yeah.
is probably not as big as like. Is the UK as big as California? I don't think so.
I don't think so. I'd have to check.
I
I
don't think
don't.
so. So like just to show how like almost irrelevant the UK is in these massive figures because we're not many people here. Um I feel like it would be comparable, like the UK and California in size. Are you Googling it? Let me know
Yeah,
if it's like close.
it's a England is a quarter of the size of California. Give me a sec.
England is a quarter the size of California. What about the whole
Wait,
UK?
give me a sec. Give me a sec. The whole UK is the same size. It's general. Well,
It's the same size.
California's bigger. California's bigger.
California is bigger. Yeah, I would think that California is bigger than the UK, to be honest. Just like guess, just as a guess.
End to end. Yeah, it's way bigger. If you just account for England, it's like yeah,
Yeah.
mad.
Okay, someone is saying that the sock runners were Alexander Wang, the arenas, Nicholas Gasquiet. Yeah, the arenas were like, that was an era of
I feel
Balenciaga. That
like
was like,
that reminded me of a point that I was making. I feel like what the culture
yeah.
around Balenciaga is akin to the culture around Alexander Wang's brand. Even
Mm,
though he's continuing business as usual, that doesn't mean that what happened didn't happen and it didn't have a lasting effect on how he operates.
no. This YouTube channel runs on your support. If you want to support the channel, you can subscribe to my Patreon. You'll gain access to exclusive content that includes everything from my Patreon podcast, where I give a behind the scenes insight into the fashion industry, as well as a fashion book club where I review my favorite fashion books. You can also check out my fashion ebook, which highlights the best fashion journalists to follow, definitions of common fashion terminology, and how to determine what a good source of fashion information is. The links to everything are in the description below.